I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
Good, y'all. Welcome to the Speak My Peace podcast. As always, I'm your gracious host, Greg Lacey. Like we always do about this time, hope this episode reaches you all in good health, hoping that you're taking care of yourself and your loved ones, as we know how important that is today. Before we do get into this episode, I do have to go back and backtrack last episode. Last episode, I called that man a parasite, and I take that back. I don't know that man to be calling him a parasite, but I think most of you got the point I was trying to drive home in terms of the comparison, them things being long overdue and long drawn out. I think that this is a time now to where we officially stop, and that's what I was trying to drive home. I don't know that man personally to call him a parasite, so I take that back. Speaking about last episode, the irony in me saying last episode that I wasn't going to make the I wasn't going to make the episode an album review episode, and then you all are going to see like the next couple of episodes kind of like align with things that were discussing the album. But that just goes to show my point of how important that album was to me, and just how aligned I felt like the album was to what we have been speaking about here on the Speak One Piece podcast on season 5. The next few episodes you're probably going to see the next few episodes you're going to see me cover a couple topics that are aligned with certain songs in that album, and so I will make those connections, but I promise you that this season was planned before that episode released, so this is not like a last minute adjustment. It's just literally just things happen to fall in place. We're speaking about last episode. Speaking about that album, I do want to go back and backtrack into a statement I made. That statement I made about black men failing me. I'm going to get into it in this episode, but I feel like I had to address that because I feel like that's a very flagrant statement to make without providing any comprehension or additional facts behind it. And so that's what this episode is going to be about. And I felt like I had to do so because I didn't want to be the person using, especially with what this platform is. I don't want to be using this platform to be contributing to something that the world already does in terms of bringing down the black man and creating stereotypes and feeding into stereotypes and different tropes and things like that. That's the last thing I want to do with the Speak On Peace podcast. So I'm going to address more in depth in this episode what I meant by that statement. I wholeheartedly meant that statement, but I don't want that statement to just be out there without any meaning behind it, because if you take away what I meant behind it, it's just a statement in itself, and it says black man has failed another black man. And so I just wanted to erase that. Going back into the album though, one of my standout songs in that album on the first listen was the song Father Time. Father Time is a track I feel like most people took to that song as well. It was a standout track from the album. The reason why it hit home for me is because it's the topic that he was discussing as far as just like daddy issues, issues that young men develop with the relationship to their fathers growing up. And I felt like the take that Kendrick Lamar provided on it was very interesting. It's not something that's new, but to see this shed in its light, it was something that was very needed, because you hear the term daddy issues, you hear the phrase daddy issues. A lot of times it's associated with women, a promiscuous women, a woman who having trouble with failed relationships. A lot of time you hear about daddy issues and it's like they attribute to a woman, but the term daddy issues and father issues is not only exclusive to women, like men do with them too. And it's not exclusively to people who don't have fathers or father figures in their lives. Like, people have father figures in their lives and they go through things as well. This song addressed that. It addressed the stereotypes of daddy issues being limited to women. It addressed stereotypes of black men and daddy issues only being relating to men who don't have fathers or father figure in their life. We had Kendrick Lamar painting this picture of the issues he had growing up with his father, in a relationship with his father, with a father who was present, a father who was there for him, a father who cared for him, a father who took care of him, provided for him, all these different things. Despite him being there, despite him being present, he felt like he still had, there were still some chinks in the armor of their relationship. And I felt like this is not something that's new, but it's something that's for the first time really been discussed from someone of his stature, but also just from a black man, just someone speaking about that. We forget a lot of times that being present is not always, especially in considering, parenthood and fatherhood, being present is not always the end all be all. Like, a lot of times people are present and they shower their children with gifts and money and miss out on the love and affection. And so your child goes up missing out on those key important things in their development. Sometimes you may just provide your child with love and affection, and your kid may grow up struggling, and whatever the case may be. There are so many instances that go into that never-ending cycle, that never-ending job of parenthood. And so to see this drawn out here on the song, to see it played out here on the song, to hear Kendrick Lamar express these things, is like, it was eye-opening. It was a powerful message that I feel like resonated with a lot of people in many different instances. As I was preparing for this episode, I was watching Menace Society because it's on Netflix now. And I just had it on just like in the background. I started preparing this episode like right after I finished the last episode. So still listening to that album heavily. That song still been heavily on my mind. But also preparing for this episode, considering the statement I made in the last episode. And as I'm preparing for this episode, I was watching Menace Society. And speaking about just alignment and things happening at the right place and me being in the right place at the right time, as I'm preparing for this episode and just watching this movie, I just got it on in the background. I look up towards the end of the movie where Kane and Ronnie go visit Purnell. For those of you who've never seen Menace Society, now is a good time to go watch it. I'm not about to explain it for you all. But for those of you who know Menace Society, you know the scene I'm talking about. They went to go visit Purnell right before they moved to Georgia. And Purnell talks to Kane. Purnell in this instance is Kane's. It's not his OG, but it's his big homie. Kane is now dating Purnell's baby mama officially. He's about to move with his baby mama, and now he's going to be the father figure in Purnell's son's Anthony's life. And so this is the first time Kane sees Purnell on a jail visit. And on the phone, as they're parting ways, Purnell says, referring to his son, "Teach him better than I taught you. Teach him the way that we grew up with bullshit." And this goes back into that statement I made about black man failing me. And that really drew my mind to something else. Watching that movie took me to another LA classic movie, which was Boys in the Hood. A lot of people think, if you ask someone what Boys in the Hood is about, they're going to say LA, they're going to say gang culture, and that's, like, for the most part, what they're going to give you. A lot of people miss out on the actual importance of that movie, and I'm one of them. It took me growing up to really understand what that movie was about. I thought here was a movie that was showcasing what the world was look like in the neighborhood I grew up in prior to me arriving in that neighborhood. That's just what I thought it was, showing gang culture, showing shootouts, showing car shows on Crenshaw, athletes growing up, many different things. But growing up, that's what I took that movie as on face value. And it took me being a mature adult to really understand the importance in that movie, the importance of Furious Styles. As you see, I named this episode after him. But the importance of Furious Styles in that movie, and the importance of Furious Styles in the role he played in his son's life, the role he played in the life of the other neighborhood boys around who didn't have a father figure in their life, but also the role he played in the neighborhood. Boys in the Hood showed us a depiction of a responsible black man, an intelligent black man, an open-minded black man, a responsible black man. I think I said responsible already. And a hardworking father. All these things, and while also still being a father. And that really hit home for me when I finally had that realization of what that movie, or not even what the movie is about, because it's not solely focused on Lawrence Fishburne's character, Furious Styles. But to me, now as I watch it, that is the most important thing to me. That is the thing that sticks out to me. Like, yeah, everything else is dope. Ice Cube, Cuba Gooding Jr. I don't know why I forget old boy's name. But you all know, like, when you think of that movie, these are the faces. These are the things you think about. You think about Ice Cube on the steps. You think about Ice Cube going to get revenge for his brother Ricky. You think about Ricky getting shot. You think about all these things, but a lot of people miss out on the importance of the role Furious Styles played in his son's life. Here we had a depiction of a broken home, a father, a young mother, black mother, and black father, bringing this young boy into this neighborhood, bringing this young boy into his world, into this neighborhood of this ghetto, and the father understanding that the boy had reached a turning point in his life to where the mother would not be able to properly guide him to prevent him from going down a route that his friends ended up going down. One ended up getting killed, another one, or they both end up getting killed. His closest friends end up getting killed. We missed out on the importance of that decision of Furious Styles at 10 years telling his baby mama that at 10 years old, his son needs to come live with him. Y'all excuse me. Get some water. But we missed out on the importance of that in that action. And that is a very pivotal part of that movie. That is a very pivotal part in his son's life. And that is what that statement was to me. I didn't have that growing up. That was the black men have failed me. I didn't have no one to guide me. And that's really what I meant. And that statement is not an indictment on the men in my life. That statement is not an indictment on all black men. That is just my reality. This podcast, this platform is a place for me to speak about my experiences in life. It's in a platform for me to account for certain things that I've seen. It's a platform for me to detail certain things that I've seen or heard and just share my thoughts and my feelings. And that is my reality. You know, if you're listening to this, you don't have to agree with the statement. You don't have to relate to the statement. Just understand that that is my reality. And I know that despite that being unique to me, it may be something that relate to you. The statement in itself and the experience in itself. But again, it wasn't an indictment on specific people or a specific group of people either. I said it before, and I hate to continue to say it because it sounds cliche, but this is truly a place of therapy for me. It's a release for me. There are certain things that I was speaking about in here prior to me getting therapy that was allowing me to get things off my chest and allowing me to just take burdens off my shoulders for a bit. And now that I'm actively in therapy, I speak about things in therapy that I speak about on here and vice versa. And so now it's just like an extension of this process that I'm already going through and healing myself and developing myself and building new habits. This is what this platform is. This is allowing me to speak more openly about something that, you know, I may not get through in a 1 hour session, or there may be certain things I may cover in a 1 hour session that I may forget. And so now this platform that I have allows me to go deeper into that. And so this is something that I've spoken about extensively in my sessions about just actually, it wasn't even something that I spoke about extensively. It was a revelation that I came through my therapy sessions and realizing that I've been failed. I've spoken to you all and detailed you all many a times about just my professional aspirations as a kid growing up and having to change that as an adult, or having to change that as a teenager, in terms of me wanting to be a professional athlete and just not working out for me. As a teenager, as a young adult, if you ask me why that didn't work out for me, 99% of the time, I'll tell you that it has something to do with me, which it does wholeheartedly have something to do with me, but I was placing all the blame on myself. Oh, I didn't work hard enough. Oh, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. But I would never admit to the fact that I just wasn't guided properly. Like, I didn't have that person in my life to tell me that, all right, if this is what you want to do, this is what you need to do. This is the route you need to take. These are the steps you need to take. This is how you get this. This is how you achieve this. I didn't have that. And so when I make a statement such as black men have failed me, that is the failure. Me realizing that I wanted to achieve a certain goal, me realizing I wanted to achieve a certain lifestyle and not having that guidance. I placed a lot of blame on myself really up until recently for why things didn't pan out the way they panned out. But that blame should not be entirely upon me. And when I came to that realization that I can't continue to solely blame myself, that in itself was a weight lifted off my shoulder. Because I didn't even realize that I was even carrying that weight around. It was just something that I just had accepted and moved on. A lot of times when things don't go our way, especially with black people, that's how we that's how we react to it. It's just, you want something to happen so bad, you want something to work out so bad, and when it doesn't, you just have to accept it for what it is and keep on pushing. And that's what I've done. But in the process of me keeping on pushing, I started to create stress for myself, because now I was putting blame upon myself for why something I wanted so bad didn't turn out the way I wanted. And it took me coming to that realization to understand how heavy that weight was. So I never really understood how heavy that weight was because I was getting so used to doing it. Me growing up in a situation that I grew up in and having a father that was incarcerated, growing up in a neighborhood I grew up in, growing up in a single parent home and to a single mother with a bunch of kids. My mama got a bunch of kids. I wasn't properly prepared for success in the avenue that I wanted to go down. And again, when I make a statement like black men have failed me, I want to omit people who have helped me. I'm not to say I didn't have any help, but I didn't have that constant figure in my life, that constant male figure. Like I've discussed in previous episodes about one of my uncles being my heroes and that being an inspiration for me even joining the military, the reason why that was even possible. That's the person I looked up to. But in the same sense, you have to understand that this was a person who had a career that in any instance he can be in a whole nother continent for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. And so that's not a constant figure. But when we spent that time together, it was definitely something that was great, and it was something that was greatly appreciated. Another constant male figure in my life was my grandfather. I've spoken extensively about my relationship with him as well, about just me not really appreciating the relationship we had because I knew that he loved me, and I believe he knew that I loved him, and he always showed that he loved me. But because I was lacking in so many areas in my development as a young man, I didn't know how to really appreciate that relationship. But that was another constant figure. That was another person who could have guided me. As another person who could talk to me and different things like that. So I'm not saying that I didn't have any figures in my life, but for the most part, I didn't have a constant figure. Going back to what I was speaking about, me growing up in a situation I grew up in, and me having an incarcerated father, single parent mother, growing up in a neighborhood I grew up in, different things like that. These are many aspects that can lead to the derailment of a black man. It has led to derailment of a black man in many different instances. I'm grateful that my life has turned out the way it has. That's through hard work. That's through my support system, my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my grandmother's sisters. Like, my support system my entire life has been women. I think about sporting events. I think about achievements in school, think about work achievement, different things like that. It had always been women. My mother, my grandmother, great grandmother, my great grandmother's daughters. Those are the people that you're going to always see around me, celebrating me, continuing to guide me, continuing to push me. But the problem with that is I'm getting the love that I should be getting for women, something that's natural for women, but I'm not getting the guidance from men. Like, the men were never around, and I never really had that. Thinking about my sporting events, like, I didn't have, once my father was out the picture, I didn't have someone to step in and guide me and take me somewhere after practice, or take me somewhere in between practice and work on certain things, or even just talk to me and ask me about what my aspirations were so that they can try to help guide me. I lacked that. And so for that reason, I was failed. I wasn't properly prepared to go down the avenues that I wanted to explore as a young kid. We say a lot of times, especially in the hoods, that it takes a village. And it truly does. And I don't know where the hell my village was in the sense of the black men to help me. There was a lot that was around, whether it's my neighborhood, whether I think about family friends, whether I think about family, relatives, whatever the case may be. There was a lot that was around, but it was never anyone to say, make sure you continue to go down this road. Don't make this street. Don't make this turn down this street. I never had that. And so that when I make a statement like that, that's where that comes from. I never had that. I know I keep on saying it and it sounds redundant, but that is the real reason behind that statement, is that I'm grateful to be where I am now. But had I not been here, had my life had turned out another way, it wouldn't have been no surprise, because in those situations, that's usually how life turned out. I didn't see it play out for friends. I didn't see it turn out that way for family. I didn't see it turn out in media, people I don't know. In many instances, I've seen how the story plays out, and I'm so grateful that mine turned out the way it turned out. But going back into just the things that I missed out upon, and I want to say this. I don't want to say that someone else should have stepped in and took over the role that my father should have had, because I don't want to place anyone else's responsibilities on another person. But I think that we have to do better within our communities in recognizing certain situations. We have to do better in our communities recognizing, hey, my friend is away. He has a son growing up in the same neighborhood we grew up in. What can I do to ensure that this kid is on the right track? Hey, my best friend is away. He has a son that's in a single parent home. What can I do to make sure this kid is going down the right track? Hey, my cousin is away. He has a single parent. He has a son in a single parent home. What can I do to make sure that this kid is going down the right track and achieving their goals? My nephew is away. He has a son, single parent home, grew up in the same neighborhood that we grew up in. What can I do to make sure that this child is going down the right road? We miss that. We miss that in our communities. And maybe it's different in your community, but in my community, I didn't see that. And we have to understand that as young men, when we miss out on that constant father figure, we miss out on key important factors in our development. We miss out on how to learn how to establish relationship with other men. Like, that is my biggest regret. And I say it, and I'm gonna keep on saying it a million times with my grandfathers, that I didn't know how to really maintain and build and reciprocate the love that he was showing me in the relationship that we had, because I'd never been taught that. Like, I didn't have a male figure in my life to show me how to love another man. I didn't have another male figure in my life to show me how to maintain a relationship with another man. And so I missed out upon that. Thinking about development, thinking about, the importance of education and the importance of structure and the importance of school. I missed out on that because I didn't have anyone around to teach me any of those things. Thinking about relationships. Granted, as a kid, it doesn't really matter that much, but we learn so much about the opposite sex as a young age because of the relationship between our parents, because of the things we see in media, because of our older relatives, whatever the case may be. We learn a lot just from watching that. We may not really understand what a relationship is, but we see certain dynamics in certain families. We see certain dynamics, certain relationships. We see certain dynamics, certain friendships, and that's how we articulate love, or that's how we articulate companionship. And so we grow up and we unknowingly repeat the same patterns that we learn, not knowing that the certain patterns we learn were toxic, because we don't have anyone in guidance say, hey, this is how you treat a woman. If you care for a woman, this is how you care for her. This is how you speak to her. This is how you interact with her. This is how you solve things. This is how you figure things out. We miss out on those things. That's a key important part of our development. That's another thing that I'm missing out on. Going on sports, like training. And I don't want to say that, again, the reason why I say like 100% it wasn't upon me how my life didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out is because so many other people were in my shoes. And for some people, they made the best of it. But the people who are in my shoes and made the best of it, I can guarantee you in each example, you can pinpoint one male figure that saw this kid has potential. This kid doesn't have a constant figure in their life. And so let me step in and be that. Even if it's not just a father, just a positive role model, how to be a man, how to learn how to do certain things, how to have certain etiquette. You could pinpoint that in almost each and every athlete's life. There are a lot of unique cases to where you won't find that, but for most cases, you're going to find that. And so these are the things we miss out upon. Again, I don't want to be placing someone else's responsibilities, like my father's responsibilities, onto other people that were around me. But I think that we have to understand, if we're going to continue to build up our communities, if I'm going to be on this platform stressing how important it is for us to build up our communities and to stick with our people and to rely upon our people, these are things as men that we have to recognize. These are things as men that we have to realize and step in and try to correct to the best of our ability. Yes, we have other responsibilities, but at the same time, if we truly believe the children are our future, these are the things that we have to be aware of. These are the things that we have to correct. We speak so much about breaking generational curses. A lot of time that phrase is like related to like a monetary value. Is like, I'm gonna break the generational curse, I'm gonna get out of debt, I'm gonna have financial freedom, I'm gonna make an X amount of money. But there are other things in terms of generational curse that need to be broken as well. How the men in your family treat women, marriages, fatherhood, occupations, wherever the case may be. There are so many other generational curses that need to be broken. And if we don't step in instances like mine and lead people down a correct path, we're going to continue to perpetrate that idea of that broken man. Because how are you going to break a generational curse if this person isn't getting guidance and now they're in the same position that you're in? I think for me and my generation, we were raised by a lot of parents that had similar upbringings that we did. Maybe there was a mother who wasn't at home. Maybe there was a father who wasn't at home. Maybe even generation before me, maybe you had, a parent or both parents were drug addicts. And so that caused them to be missing. And a lot of times you have kids have to fend for themselves and raise for themselves. I've had many stories with many friends. I have many stories with people who aren't friends, but people who just have stories with just their upbringing, who come from those type of backgrounds where their parents were raised in a broken home. Their parents wasn't raised in the most proper family structure, but they end up having kids, and then once they had kids, there was neglection there with the child as well, because they never learned. Like, that is breaking a generational curse. Understanding that there was a trickle effect from your grandparents or your parent to you, and someone stepping in and saying, okay, this isn't correct. I'm aware that my upbringing wasn't something that anyone else should have to go through. And so now I have to do what I can to prevent the next generation from repeating those curses, from going down that road. This is the things that we have to speak about. The reason why I brought up Furious Styles is because, granted, that was his biological son, but just the importance in that figure of Lawrence Fishburne in that movie, it spoke volumes of how powerful a black man could be should he step in and play a role of guidance and letting someone know that, you are loved, letting someone know that this is how your life should play out. This is what you want. This is what you should do. Like, that movie could have went a whole nother way had Trey stayed in that car, went, to get the killers of Ricky with Doughboy. His life could have played out completely different. And in many instances, things like that happen. But he had a father. He had a father who cared for him. He had a father who told him that it wasn't worth, retaliating. He had a father who let him know that he loved him. He had a father who, from childhood, built structure within a home. Established chores, established the importance of school, established how to what is the word I'm looking for? It's a D word. How to de-escalate situations. How to de-escalate, situations where it's high intense, where it's high emotions, different things like that. He had a father to show him that way, and because of that, it made Trey Styles a better man. And this is all what I meant by that statement, that black men have failed me, is that I didn't have that figure. I think in many instances, people step into lives and create lives and have no intentions of really breaking those curses that need to be broken. I think in one way or another, we as black men all deserve a Furious Styles. And I think that's all I got for you all this week. We just had the 30-minute mark, which is perfect. I'm trying to think if I missed anything as I was spoken about this subject, but I don't think I did. As we get out of here, I don't have a what to watch this week, but we have a best kept secret. We're going to bring the best kept secret back for 1 week because it is perfectly aligned with this episode. Listen to the song Honor Amongst Thieves by Skyzoo. And then when you finish listening to that song, listen to his project Milestones. You have to listen to him in that order. First, listen to Honor Amongst Thieves, which is just a song. It's a 9-minute song, but it's well worth listening, and it ties into this episode of this podcast. Then once you listen to that song, transition to the entire album, Milestones, and don't shuffle it. Run it from front to back. That's the Speak One Piece podcast for this week, y'all. I'm out.